His scent was still on her skin at 6 in the morning. Heavy, expensive, foreign. Jada Monroe hadn't showered. She'd just lain there staring at the ceiling, asking herself the one question she couldn't answer. When exactly had she stopped wanting to wash him off? Jada Monroe had clean answers for everything. She was a woman who planned, who prepared, who never let anything or anyone catch her off guard. She'd come to Seoul for the music, not for a man, not for whatever this was becoming. Let's back up. Before I do, if you want to find out how a woman who had answers for everything ended up with none for him, hit subscribe. This story doesn't wait for anyone. The store is called Vinyl and Soul. She bought it on the last of her savings 3 years ago, when Chicago started feeling like a city that had already decided who she was and wasn't interested in revising its opinion. Seoul was different. Seoul was loud in a different language. The noise didn't know her name yet. That felt like freedom. The shop sits on a narrow street in Mapo-gu, sandwiched between a dry cleaner and a place that sells handmade shoes. The sign out front is hand-lettered. She did it herself the night before opening, sitting on the floor with a brush and a bottle of black paint and a feeling she hadn't felt since she was a kid, that a thing she built with her hands might actually hold. Inside it smells like dust and paper and something deeper underneath. The particular warmth of vinyl that's been touched 1,000 times by 1,000 different hands. She knows every record in every crate. She knows which ones warp in humidity. She knows which covers are faded from sun through the east window. She knows the store the way she knows her own body. All of it, including the parts that need work. She was looking for a specific pressing. Marvin Gaye, 1973, original Tamla label. The one with the slightly darker center ring. She'd been hunting it for months. A customer mentioned seeing it at an estate sale. She'd called 3 dealers. She was not above, standing on a stepladder and going through the back crates herself. That's what she was doing when he walked in. She heard the bell above the door. Didn't look down. She was deep in the crate, flipping carefully, humming something under her breath. An old habit. Music her body makes when her mind is somewhere else. She wasn't performing. Nobody ever came in during the rain. She was alone, or thought she was, which is a different kind of alone. She didn't hear his footsteps. She only felt it. The air in the room changed. The way air changes when a window opens, when the pressure shifts. It wasn't a sound. It was something more physical than sound. A change in the room's attention. She kept flipping. Then her fingers landed on it. The Tamla pressing. Dark center ring. Original sleeve. Barely worn. She made a small sound of satisfaction. The kind you can't fake. And that's when she turned around. Record in both hands and found him standing directly below her. Korean, mid-30s. The kind of man who doesn't stand anywhere. He occupies space. Dark suit. No tie. The jacket probably worth more than her monthly rent. Short black hair. Clean. A face that had learned a long time ago not to show what it was thinking. He was looking up at her. Not the way men usually looked at her. With that automatic inventory, the scan that goes up and down and tells you exactly what a man thinks your body is for. He was looking at her like she was something he had been trying to locate and had just now confirmed the coordinates of. That was the part she would think about later. That look. He held up a record. Same pressing, same label, same dark center ring. She looked at it. Looked at him, looked back at the one in her hands. found it first," she said. His expression didn't change, but something behind it shifted, like a door that moves an inch without opening. "You were singing," he said. His English was precise, American inflected, not British. Someone had taught him carefully, or he'd learned from watching something specific. "Humming," she said. "Not the same thing. It was the bridge from Come Get to This." He said it without showing off, just a fact. 1973. Same album. She came down the ladder, not because he asked her to, because she was done up there, and she wanted to be on the same level as this conversation. She was not a small woman. Wide hips, full chest, the kind of body that takes up room with confidence, and she did not shrink as she stepped down. She held the record against her side and looked at him straight. "You know Marvin Gaye?" she said. "I know that pressing." He glanced at the record in her hands. "The one you have has a hairline crack on side B. Third track. You won't hear it until the second listen." She turned it over, looked at the vinyl. He was right. A thin line, barely visible, running from the center ring outward. She looked up. "You can't listen to it here," he said. His voice was level, no performance in it. "Why not? The acoustics are wrong." He looked around the store, not dismissively, but the way someone looks at a room they've already measured. It needs space. Darkness. This record was made for a specific kind of listening. She should have said, "That's a strange thing to say to a stranger in my store." She should have said a lot of things that the version of herself from 2 months ago would have said without thinking. Instead, she said, "Then where?" He looked at her, and for 1 second, just one, something in his face was completely unguarded. Not softness, something older than softness. Recognition. "In the dark," he said. She heard herself say, "Show me." He set down the duplicate record on the counter. He didn't buy it. He didn't ask for her name. He walked to the door and held it open, and rain came in on the air, cold and clean and smelling like a city that doesn't sleep. She put the Marvin Gaye in a paper sleeve. She turned off the backlight. She locked the register. She was aware, in some clear and quiet part of her mind, that she was doing something she didn't usually do. Getting into cars with men she didn't know. Saying yes to things that hadn't been fully explained. But the record had a crack in it she hadn't noticed. And he had. And that felt like something. The Maybach was black and silent and smelled like leather. And something else underneath. His cologne, layered, expensive. The kind that doesn't announce itself. It just stays. She sat in the passenger seat, and he pulled into traffic, and the city went past the windows in streaks of neon and rain. She said, "You never told me your name." He said, "Jae-hwan." She said, "Jada." He said, "I know." She looked at him. He kept his eyes on the road. His face was perfectly still, and she thought she would think later that she should have asked him right then. How? How do you know? What do you know? But she didn't ask. The rain was loud on the roof, and there was something about the way he held the steering wheel. Both hands easy, like a man who always knows exactly where he's going. That made questions feel premature. The Marvin Gaye record sat on her lap the whole ride. She kept her hand flat on the paper sleeve. She could feel the warmth coming through it. Or maybe that was her own hand. It's hard to know, sometimes, where the object ends and the feeling begins. The penthouse was on the 53rd floor. Floor to ceiling glass on to sides. Seoul spread out below in the rain like a circuit board lit from within. There was a turntable on a low shelf along the far wall, a serious one, the kind that costs as much as a car. Next to it, records, floor to ceiling. He took her coat, took the record from her hands, slid it from the sleeve without touching the surface, to fingers on the edge, practiced. He set it on the turntable with a care that was almost private. He turned off the overhead lights. One lamp stayed on, low, in the far corner. The color of the inside of a closed eye. The needle dropped, and Marvin Gaye's voice came through that room like something being poured. She stood in the middle of the space and felt it. Not just heard it, felt it. In her chest, and her spine, and the back of her knees. Okay, she said quietly. I see what you mean. He was standing behind her. She didn't hear him move. She just knew he was there the way you know weather is changing. The crack, he said. Side B. Third track. You'll hear it in a few minutes. Does it ruin it? He was quiet for a moment. No, he said. It just tells you the record's been somewhere. She didn't turn around. The music filled the room. Rain moved down the glass in long, slow lines, and the city below kept going, indifferent. And she stood in his light, and his air, and his sound, and thought, this is either the best decision I've made in Seoul or the worst one. And the honest truth was she couldn't tell the difference yet. She did not know what was in his jacket pocket. She did not know about the message that had come through 20 minutes ago. She did not know about Tayo. She did not know about Olia. She did not know about the room. The record played. The third track on side B came around, and she heard it. The faintest skip, a hairline interruption in the groove. Barely a sound. Just a suggestion of a flaw. She smiled. He had been right about everything so far. What she didn't know yet was that being right about everything is not a coincidence. It's a preparation. When she got into the car to leave, hours later, music finished. Lamp still low, rain still moving on the glass. He was already reading his phone. She saw his face in the blue light of the screen. Something moved across it. Not emotion exactly. More like a calculation completing. He put the phone in his pocket. He closed the car door for her. He got in on his side and started the engine and put on the music. The same pressing. The same record. As if the evening was continuing rather than ending. She thought about asking what the message said. She didn't. The music was too good. When she got into the car, he was already reading the message. 3 words. His son's name. And a verb that leaves no options. He put the phone in his pocket, closed the door, turned on the music. That exact record. As if nothing had happened. That was the moment she should have left. But the music was too good. If this story already has its hooks in you, you are not alone. Drop a comment below. Team Jada, or did she already lose the moment she came down off that ladder? Subscribe to Seoul Midnight Lore. New episodes every Thursday. The next chapter is where the contract gets signed. And nothing signed in that penthouse ever had an easy exit clause. Chapter 2. Contract. The penthouse does not feel like a home. Jada figures this out on the second visit. The first time she was too inside the music to notice the architecture of the place. The second time she walks in, and the feeling hits her before she can name it. This space was designed for effect. Every angle calculated, every surface chosen. The lighting adjusts automatically as they enter, warming the room from the window side, keeping the far corners in shadow. Like a stage being set for something specific. She notices this, files it. does not leave. That's the thing about Jada Monroe that Jaewon understood before she did. She is not a woman who frightens easily. And she is not a woman who runs from things that interest her. White hips, full chest, warm dark skin. The bearing of a curvy and bold woman from Chicago who built something with her hands and knows the weight of her own decisions. Her mother called it stubbornness. Her best friend in Chicago called it the reason you're always fine eventually, but the road getting there is insane. Jada called it knowing what she wanted. What she wanted, the second night, was to understand him. That was her stated intention, the one she gave herself on the cab ride over. Just understanding. Information. She was a businesswoman. She assessed situations. She did not make decisions without data. She was lying to herself, and she knew it. But the lie had a clean shape, and she let it stand. He was already there when she arrived. This would always be the case. She would never arrive before him, never catch him unprepared, never see the room before he'd had a chance to arrange it. She thought about this later, but that second night she just noticed it the way you notice weather. As a fact, not yet a question. He had music on, not Marvin Gaye this time. Something older, slower, a vocalist she couldn't immediately place, a woman, Korean, with a voice that had seen things. He had a glass of something dark on the low table and a second glass beside it, already poured, as if he'd known the exact minute she'd walk through the door. Maybe he had. "You like whiskey?" he said. Not a question. "Sometimes," she said. "How did you know?" He handed her the glass. "You have a bottle behind the counter at the store, halfway down. You don't offer it to customers." She took the glass. She held it without drinking. "You've been in my store before," she said. Before that night. He sat down, crossed one leg over the other, looked at her with that expression she was starting to map. Not warm, not cold. Somewhere in a register she didn't have a word for yet. Patient. The patience of someone who has already seen how a situation ends and is simply waiting for the moment to arrive. "I've been by," he said. She wanted to ask more. She didn't. Something told her that asking the wrong questions too early was the same as showing your hand before you knew what game you were playing. Instead, she sat down across from him, drank the whiskey. It was very good whiskey. "The music," she said. "Who is this?" "Linnea," he said. 1960s. She was called the Queen of Trot. That style doesn't exist the same way anymore. He looked at the speaker like he was seeing something behind it. Things that don't exist anymore are worth more, I think. More than people understand. It was the most he'd said in a single breath. She watched him say it. "You collect things that don't exist anymore," she said. He looked at her. "Yes," he said simply. And the air did something complicated. The offer came on the third night. The first 2 nights had been music and conversation and the particular kind of tension that doesn't resolve. It just accumulates. He was not a man who moved fast. He was a man who made you feel the distance between 2 points until the distance itself became unbearable. And then he didn't close it. He just waited to see what you'd do with the unbearable. She'd gone home both nights with his scent on her jacket and her mind running the kind of laps it runs when something isn't settled. The third night he said, "I want to make you a proposal." They were standing at the window. Seoul below them, 1 a.m. The city still going strong the way Seoul does. Relentless, layered, indifferent to the hour. She turned from the window. "Let's be honest," he said. "We're both too old for games about what this is." She almost laughed, because games were exactly what this felt like. But she kept her face easy. "Then be honest," she said. 9 nights, he said. 9 records. 9 evenings in this space. No questions outside of this room. No obligations. No story we have to tell other people. He paused. After the 9th night, nothing. She looked at him for a long moment. And what does that mean? Nothing. It means the contract ends clean. You go back to your store. I go back to my work. Neither of us owes the other an explanation. The word contract. She heard it land. A woman who ran a small business heard that word differently than other women might. A contract meant terms. Terms meant he'd thought about this carefully. Terms meant he already knew what he was giving and, more importantly, what he was keeping. She should have asked, "What are you keeping?" That's a strange way to start something, she said instead. It's an honest way. He looked at her directly. No performance in it. Or if there was performance, she couldn't see the seams. Most people pretend there are no terms. I'm telling you the terms. She walked to the table, picked up her glass, turned it in her hands. "And if I want different terms, then you don't have to agree," he said. "The door is there." He said it without aggression. Factually, the door is there. It was. She would understand later. The most dangerous thing he said all night, because it made the choice feel like hers. He gave her the exit clearly, cleanly, at the exact moment she was least likely to use it. She stood in that penthouse with whiskey in her hand and Lee Mi-ya on the speakers, and the city below them like a second conversation, and she thought, 9 nights is 9 nights. She was a grown woman. She knew what she wanted and she knew what she didn't. "And you play me 9 records, she said. "1 per night." The corner of his mouth moved in a way that could be a smile if you were being generous. "I choose the records. I don't like that part." "I know," he said. "That's why it's in the terms." She looked at him. He looked at her. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the city reflected itself in the wet streets below, in long trembling lines of light. "Fine," she said. 9 nights. He nodded once, like something had been confirmed that he already expected to be confirmed. He went to the turntable and put on a new record. She watched him do it and thought, "I just agreed to something." She didn't yet understand the full dimension of what. What she didn't know, and would not know for weeks, was that the terms he'd laid out had been constructed the way certain legal documents are constructed, with the important clauses in language that sounds like courtesy. No questions outside this room meant she had forfeited the right to ask about anything beyond these walls. No obligations meant she had no claim on his time, his attention, his decisions. The contract ends clean meant she could not hold him accountable for anything that happened during the 9 nights or after them. He had removed, in the most gracious way she'd ever seen it done, every tool she might have used to require something of him. She thought she was agreeing to 9 evenings of music and a man she found interesting. She was actually agreeing to silence in advance, with a signature that was just her saying fine in a penthouse at 1 a.m. with whiskey in her hand. Some contracts are written on paper. Some are written in a room where the light is exactly right and the music is exactly right, and the man across from you is looking at you like you are the most interesting problem he has encountered in years. The second kind are harder to dispute later. That same night, in a different part of the city, a woman stood in the hallway of an elementary school. She was 28 years old, dark brown skin, warm and deep, long purple hair falling just below her shoulders. The kind of purple that is completely natural on the person wearing it, as if any other color would have been the strange choice. Her eyes were expressive in the way of someone who feels everything at full volume and has learned, over years of necessary practice, to keep most of it below the surface. She was wearing a red dress, open cut, the kind that does not apologize for the body inside it, and she looked completely wrong for an empty school hallway at midnight, which was not something she was thinking about. Her name was Olia. The building was empty, fluorescent lights humming to bright, to flat. Her footsteps were the only sound. She opened the locker. Empty, not cleaned out, emptied. The difference was in the details. A cleaned-out locker has nothing in it because someone carefully removed everything. An emptied locker has nothing in it because everything was taken quickly by someone with a list and a procedure who was not careful because they didn't need to be. They had authority. Authority doesn't have to be careful. On the floor of the locker, one blue sock, child-sized, left behind not as a message, but as an oversight. The kind of thing that happens when you move fast, and the child is scared, and the child is 7, and the child keeps asking questions that nobody is answering. Olio picked up the sock, held it in her palm. Her expressive eyes moved across it the way they moved across everything, taking in the full weight of what she was looking at, not allowing herself to look away from it. Not yet. She took the document from her coat pocket. 1 page. Official letterhead. A single line of language that, in its full bureaucratic neutrality, described the removal of a child from a school enrollment record. Deportation process initiated. She had found out 3 hours ago. Through a contact. Not through any official channel. No one from any official channel had called her. Someone had made very sure of that. She knew who. She had known for 2 days. The way you know a thing before you have the evidence for it. In the body. In the place where dread lives. She had made calls. The attorney assigned to Tayo's case had a firm. The firm had a silent majority partner. The name on the partnership documents was a family name she recognized. The family name of the woman who had decided, years ago, that Olio Park was a problem that needed to be solved. She stood in the empty school hallway with a blue sock in one hand and a deportation document in the other, and she did not cry. She had learned the hard way that crying used time she didn't have. She put the sock in her pocket, put the document back in her coat, turned off the hallway lights, walked out. She was already counting moves. 3 moves back, to forward, hold the center, wait for the opening. Back in the penthouse, Jada didn't know any of this. She sat on the floor with her back against the couch and a second whiskey in her hand, and Otis Redding coming through the speakers now, and J1 sitting close enough that she was aware of every breath he took. He said, "Tell me about Chicago." She said, "Which part?" He said, "The part that made you leave." She looked at him sideways. "That's personal." "Yes," he said. She looked back at the speaker. The music held the room the way good music does, not as background, as presence. "My mother died," she said finally, 2 years ago. And after she died, everything in that city looked like something she was supposed to be in. Every corner, every record store, every Sunday morning. She paused. I needed somewhere that didn't have her in the frame yet. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Is Seoul working?" She thought about it honestly. "Some days," she said. He nodded. Didn't offer comfort. Didn't say he was sorry. He just nodded. Like what she said was a real thing that deserved to be received as a real thing. She noticed that. She would notice it many times in the weeks ahead. The way he listened without managing her, without fixing or deflecting, just receiving what she said and holding it. She didn't know yet that this too was technique, the most sophisticated kind, the kind indistinguishable from genuine attention. She only knew that it felt, sitting on the floor of a penthouse in Seoul at 1 a.m., like being seen. That was the moment she agreed to the 9 nights in the place that mattered. Not when she said fine with the whiskey in her hand. When she felt seen. 9 nights. 9 records. She thought it was a love story with a clean ending. She didn't know it was a room with a lock. She didn't know he had been building the room for years. And somewhere in this city, in a building with fluorescent hallways and metal furniture, a 7-year-old boy was sitting on a bench looking at a door that opened from only one direction, waiting for someone who didn't know she was supposed to come. Olia did not cry. She simply stood at the empty locker and held the document in her hands. 1 line. Government font, a stamp. The system does not shout. The system simply signs and takes your child while you still believe you have time. If you are already in this story the way Jada is in that penthouse, stay. Subscribe to Seoul Midnight Lore. Drop a comment below. Did she make a mistake or did she make a choice? Because in this universe, sometimes those are the same thing. New episode next Thursday. Chapter 3 is where the silence starts to cost something. He disappears for 3 days. No message, no explanation, no warning that he was going. One night he is there, close, warm, the room arranged around her like a question she almost knew the answer to. And then he is not. The 9th floor of her building gets smaller. The store gets louder. The city outside the windows keeps going in that relentless soul way, indifferent to the fact that something in her internal weather has shifted and she cannot get it to shift back. She tells herself she is not waiting. She is a grown woman with a business to run, an inventory to catalog, and 3 new crates. That came in from a dealer in Bizen that needs sorting. She has things to do. She does them. She opens the store at 10, makes coffee on the hot plate behind the counter, puts on a record, carefully chosen, something with no associations, something clean. Nina Simone, early period, before the weight of the world got fully into her voice. It doesn't work. Nina Simone reminds her of the second night when he asked who was playing and she said Nina. And he said which album and she said Wild is the Wind and he nodded like she'd passed a test. She hadn't known she was taking. She puts on something else. Coltrane. That doesn't work either. She turns the music off entirely and works in silence, which is something she has not done in this store since the week her mother died. The silence feels like a form of punishment. She is not sure who is administering it. This is the thing about the kind of man Jaewon is. He does not need to be present to occupy space. In a person's life, he has already installed himself through music and whiskey and the particular quality of his attention in the part of her brain that processes comfort. Now that he's absent, the absence has a shape, a specific temperature. She notices the shape the way you notice a tooth that's been pulled, not the tooth, the space where it was. She is furious at herself for noticing. She calls her friend Simone back in Chicago on the 2nd day. Simone, who has known her since they were both 17 and working the same record store on the South Side, who is a genius for saying the exact true thing without decoration. I met someone, Jada says. In Seoul, Simone says, details. Korean older. He has this penthouse. Of course he does. It's not like that. I mean, it's exactly like that, but it's also, I don't know, Sim. He's strange. He's the kind of strange that makes you want to figure it out. That is historically your specific weakness, Simone says. The puzzle men. He hasn't called in 3 days. Simone is quiet for a moment. What were the terms? What? You said he was strange. Strange men always set terms. What were his terms? Jada is quiet. Jada. 9 nights. Jada says. No questions. No obligations. Simone makes a sound that is not quite a word. I know. Jada says. You signed a contract with a man you don't know. I didn't sign anything. Baby, Simone says, with the particular gentleness of someone who loves you enough to tell you the truth. Yes, you did. On the 3rd day, Jada stops arguing with herself about whether she is waiting and simply waits. She closes the store at 7 instead of 9. She goes upstairs to her apartment, takes a shower, puts on the oversized sweater she wears when she wants to feel like herself. She makes tea. She puts on a record, Donny Hathaway, Extension of a Man, a record her mother loved, and she sits on the floor with her back against the couch and her tea getting cold beside her, and she lets herself feel, without commentary, the plain fact that she misses him. Not the penthouse, not the whiskey or the music or the view of the city got him. The particular quality of his presence, the way the room changed when he was in it. She misses a man she has spent a combined total of 3 evenings with. This information about herself is not comfortable. The phone rings at 2:17 a.m. She is not asleep. She was not going to be asleep. She picks up on the second ring, and this, she will later identify, was the moment that told him everything. Not answering on the second ring, before the third. It told him exactly how awake she was and exactly what she'd been doing with her wakefulness. What are you listening to? He says. No greeting, no apology for the 3 days. Just the question in that precise, unhurried voice, as if they are continuing a conversation that was only briefly interrupted. She should say, "Where have you been?" She should say, "You can't just disappear and call at 2 a.m. like that's a normal thing to do." She says, "Donny Hathaway, which track? Someday we'll all be free." She pauses. The live version. He is quiet for a moment. She can hear him breathing. She can hear, faintly, what might be traffic or might be rain. "Come here," he says. 2 words, not an apology, not an explanation, not even a question. "Come here," as if the 3 days were a parenthesis he's now closing, as if to 17 a.m. is a reasonable hour for this kind of request, as if she is simply going to stand up and put on her coat, and she is already standing up. She realizes this with a clarity that is almost funny. Her body made the decision before her mind finished the sentence. She is on her feet, Donny Hathaway still playing, tea still on the floor, and she is looking for her coat. She stops, stands in the middle of her apartment. She understands, in this moment, with a precision that she wishes she didn't have, what has happened. She did not decide to go. She was retrieved. The 3 days of silence were not absence. They were calibration. He waited exactly long enough. Let the space get exactly the right shape. And then he called at exactly the right hour, with exactly the right question, and her body answered before she could intervene. She stands in the middle of her apartment for a full minute. Donny Hathaway singing about freedom, the particular bitter irony of that not lost on her. Then she puts on her coat, because knowing a thing and being able to stop it are different skills, and she has only just started learning the first one. The Maybach is outside when she gets downstairs. She did not tell him her address. She realizes this on the sidewalk. Hand on the door handle, cold air on her face. She gets in anyway. He looks at her, one long look. The way he has of looking that feels like reading rather than seeing. Then he faces forward and pulls into the empty street, and the city at 2:30 a.m. slides past the windows in muted neon and silence. "You didn't tell me you were going anywhere," she says. "No." He agrees. For 3 days, yes. She looks at his profile, the line of his jaw, the particular stillness of a man who does not feel required to explain himself. Is that something that happens? She says, the disappearing. He considers this. Sometimes, he says, when things require attention. What things? He glances at her. 1 second, then back to the road. Outside this arrangement, he says, I have a life. He says it gently, but the word arrangement lands with a specific weight. Not what they were, not what she'd started to feel. Arrangement, clean word, legal word, the word of someone who has remembered the terms even when she had started to forget them. She looks out the window. Fair enough, she says. Her voice is level. He reaches over and turns on the music. A record she doesn't recognize. Guitar and a voice. Old recording. The warmth of analog. Who is this? She asks. Kim Chu-ya, he says. 1970s. She disappeared from the industry for 15 years. Then came back and recorded one album and disappeared again. He pauses. Some people make better music when they've been somewhere and come back from it. She looks at him. He is looking at the road, but there is something in the set of his jaw that might, on a different man's face, be an apology. She decides to accept it as one. The fourth night is different. She has trouble, afterward, explaining how. The apartment is the same. The music is the same quality. The same ritual of the record taken from the sleeve. The needle placed with that private care. The whiskey is the same. He is the same. But she is different. She came this night understanding something she didn't understand before. That she is not in control of this. And that she agreed, in the most fundamental way, to not be in control of this when she said fine that first evening. And that understanding does not make her leave. It makes her present in a different way, sharper, more herself, somehow, now that the illusion of managing the situation has been removed. She sits on his floor, and she looks at him, and she thinks, I see you. Not all of you. Not even most of you, but more than I did a week ago. He brings her a strawberry. This is the detail she will carry longest. Not the music, not the city through the glass, not the quality of his voice in the dark. A strawberry from a bowl on the counter, casual, as if he simply picked it up on his way across the room. He holds it out toward her mouth, easy, unhurried, like an offering that doesn't require a ceremony. She opens her mouth. He pulls his hand back. Not yet, he says. She looks at him. He looks at her. The corner of his mouth. That almost smile. He sets the strawberry on the edge of her glass. She understands, sitting there, that this is not cruelty. It is something more intimate than cruelty, more considered. He is not withholding. He is making her aware of wanting, turning her own appetite into something she can feel from the outside. She picks up the strawberry herself, eats it, looks at him the whole time. He watches her with an expression she still does not have a word for. You never just give me things, she says. I give you music, he says. You give me music you've chosen, on terms you've set. Yes, he says. That's not the same as giving. He tilts his head slightly. Everything is given on terms, he says. I just say mine out loud. She thinks about that for a long time after she goes home. Everything is given on terms. She just hadn't known, before him, how many things she'd accepted without reading what the terms were. What Jada does not know on that fourth night. She does not know that across the city a boy named Tayo is sitting on a metal bench in a room with institutional lighting and a door that opens from only one direction. She does not know that he has stopped asking when his mother is coming because he has asked for times and the answer is always the same. A closed door, a silence that has its own specific quality. The silence of adults who know the answer and have decided not to give it to a child. She does not know that Tayo has found a way to pass the time. He counts the fluorescent tubes in the ceiling. There are 9. He counts them over and over, quietly, as if counting is a way of holding the room to a number. She does not know that somewhere in this city, a 28-year-old woman with dark brown skin and long purple hair falling just below her shoulders is sitting at a kitchen table with 4 browser tabs open and a cup of coffee that went cold 2 hours ago. The spiral tattoo on her right shoulder catches the light of the laptop screen as she moves. Her expressive eyes are moving fast across documents, faster than her face is showing. She has the name of the firm. She has the partnership documents. She has a paper trail that leads, with the particular neatness of things that have been arranged rather than happened. From the attorney all the way back to a family that has spent 30 years, making sure that certain problems do not persist. Olia Park does not sleep tonight. She calls a contact, a woman she knows from a period of her life she does not talk about. The contact says, "How long?" Olia says, "How long until what?" Until it's irreversible. Silence. 48 hours, the contact says. After the secondary review clears, the process completes. After that, it gets much harder. Olia looks at the time on her laptop, does the math. She has been doing the math for 3 days. Every calculation leads to the same place. She cannot stop this from inside the system. The system is closed. It was designed to be closed for exactly this kind of situation. Someone with resources and access and the particular patience of old money built this route months ago and made sure all the doors locked from the outside. There is one door, she thinks, that still opens. She does not want to use it. She looks at Tayo's school photo on the table beside the laptop. 7 years old, black hair, dark eyes with that particular quality she has always found impossible to describe. Old, somehow. Eyes that know something they haven't been told. She closes the laptop. She picks up her phone. She stares at the number she has not dialed in 2 years. Somewhere in this city, in a penthouse 53 floors above a rain-wet street, a man who shares those eyes is sitting on the floor with a woman who does not know what she is in the middle of, playing her music that was chosen for her weeks before she walked into a store she thought was hers. Ollie dials. It rings twice. He picks up. Neither of them speaks for a moment. The silence between them is not the silence of strangers. It is the silence of people who have too much history to pretend this is a simple call. Then Olia says, he's been in there for 4 days. Jae-hwan. Silence on his end. She can hear him breathing. I know, he says. She closes her eyes. 1 second. Then why, she says, very quietly, are you still sitting in that penthouse? He doesn't answer. The silence stretches. In it she can hear the shape of the choice he is making and refusing to make at the same time. There are 48 hours, she says. After that I can't stop it from outside. And you know what happens after that. I know, he says again. Then, good night, Olia, he says. And the line goes dead. She sits with the phone in her hand. Then she sets it on the table next to Tayo's photograph and looks at his small face and those old eyes and thinks about the kind of man who can hear that his child is sitting in a holding room and say goodnight and hang up. She knows that man. She loved that man once. She also knows that the man is the only one who can open the door she cannot open from outside. She picks up the phone again. She is not going to call him back. She is going to start the next move. The boy sat on the metal bench, did not cry, just looked at the door. He did not yet know that doors here open only from the outside. He was still waiting for his mother. That is the worst part, when a child still believes. If you cannot stop listening, you are exactly who this story was made for. Subscribe to Seoul Midnight Lore. Drop a comment right now. Did Jae-won make a calculation or a choice when he said goodnight? Because in this world those two things look identical from the outside. Thursday. Chapter 4 is where Jada walks into the full dimension of his world. And the full dimension is the most dangerous thing she has seen since she came to this city. Chapter 4. He picks the dress. She finds it on the morning of the 5th night, which means they are past the halfway point of the 9, and she has stopped doing the arithmetic the way she did in the beginning, when the number felt like a safety rail. Now the number just sits in the back of her mind like a clock she can hear, but has stopped checking. The dress is hanging on the back of her apartment door. She does not know how it got there. She stands in the hallway of her own apartment in the gray Seoul morning light, with coffee in her hand, and looks at it. Black dot simple cut. The kind of simple that costs a serious amount of money. She knows fabric. She knows construction. She can see from across the room that this dress was made for a specific kind of body. Her kind of body. Wide in the hip, full in the chest. The kind of silhouette that cheap fabric punishes and good fabric rewards. The kind of dress that understands that a curvy woman moving through a room is not a problem to be managed but a fact to be honored. There is a card. She crosses the hall, picks it up. One line, his handwriting, precise, unhurried, the same quality as his voice. Tonight, 9 o'clock. Wear this. No question mark. No please. No explanation of where they are going. She should be angry. She catalogues the reasons to be angry. He has a key to her apartment, apparently, or access to someone who does. He has selected her clothing without asking. He has issued an instruction rather than an invitation. Each of these things, examined in daylight over coffee, is a clear boundary crossed. She holds the dress up, looks at it against the light. It is exactly her, not just her size, her, the color, the weight of the fabric, the way the hem falls. Like something she would have chosen herself if she had walked into a store she had no business being in and tried on something she had no business wanting. She hangs it back on the door. She goes to work. At 8:45 she goes upstairs and puts on the dress. She stands in front of the mirror before she leaves. The fabric moves with her the way she knew it would, following the curve of her wide hips, settling across her full chest, draping the way expensive things drape, without apology and without effort. Her warm dark skin against the black of it makes her look like a woman who was assembled with intention. She turns. The dress turns with her. She looks at herself for a long time. She is not thinking about him. She is thinking about the dress and what it means that it is perfect. Not approximately right. Not close. Perfect. The kind of perfect that requires knowledge. The kind of knowledge that requires time. She puts on her coat, goes downstairs, does not let herself think about what kind of man spends that much time acquiring that specific kind of knowledge about a woman before introducing himself. Not yet, not tonight. He is outside at 9 exactly. Maybach, engine running. He gets out when he sees her and stands on the sidewalk and looks at her. Not the automatic inventory, not appreciation, something more deliberate than either. The assessment she has learned to read. The look that goes all the way through rather than stopping at the surface. You look correct, he says. She raises an eyebrow. Correct. Right, he says. I mean right. A pause. Something moves behind his eyes that might be the closest he gets to discomfort. Both. She gets in the car. They drive for 20 minutes. She watches the city change around them, from her neighborhood's narrow commercial streets into wider avenues, then into a district she doesn't know, where the buildings are darker and the signs are smaller, and the people on the sidewalks move with the particular purpose of people who know where they are going and why. No tourists here, no English on the signage. He pulls up outside a building with no visible name. Black exterior, a single door, matte steel, with one man outside it who does not look like a bouncer because bouncers have an energy of waiting to refuse you. This man has the energy of a mechanism. He is not there to decide who enters. He is there to confirm that certain people don't need to be decided about. He sees Jae-hwan and opens the door without a word. Inside, bass first, not music yet, The physical fact of bass, the kind that gets into your sternum before your ears process it. Then the smell, expensive cologne and cigarette smoke, and something underneath that might be leather or might be money. The particular smell of a room that has never once been ordinary. Then the light, deep red shifted toward purple at the edges, a color that makes every face in the room look like they are keeping a secret. This is midnight lore. Jada has been in clubs. Chicago has clubs. She grew up going to places where the music was serious and the people were dressed for it, and the night had a specific gravity that you could feel from the outside. She knows what a real room feels like. This room is different. This room is not a club the way a nuclear reactor is not a power strip. Both involve power. The scale is categorically different. Every table occupied. Every person in clothes that cost what her monthly rent costs. The bar along the far wall staffed by 3 people who move with the efficiency of people trained to be invisible. The stage empty but lit, waiting. And the people, Korean mostly, a few faces she can't place nationally. 1 table of men in Western suits who have the particular stillness of people very far from home, who need to project comfort. All of them arranged in the room with the specific geometry of a hierarchy she cannot yet read. She follows Jae-won through the room, and she feels it. The change in the room as they move, not heads turning. That would be normal. That would be a crowd reacting to a new presence. This is different. This is the opposite of turning. People who were in motion go still. Conversations that were mid-sentence continue, but the speaker's eyes have shifted. A man at the bar who was reaching for his glass pauses and then, very deliberately, does not look at them as they pass. It is the choreography of fear. She recognizes it because she is from Chicago and she has seen, at the edges of certain situations, the specific physics of a room when the wrong person enters it. She has seen how bodies adjust to accommodate a threat without directly acknowledging the threat. She has seen how a crowd performs normalcy for someone they are afraid of. She has never been the person walking beside the threat before. She sits down in the VIP section, raised, curved booth, sight lines to the whole room. The kind of position chosen not for comfort, but for information. And she looks out at midnight lore, and she thinks, who is this man? Not in the wondering way she thought it in the store, that first night. With curiosity and the particular openness she has toward puzzles. In the colder way, the way you think it when you have new data that changes the shape of the question. The waitress comes, does not hand them menus, does not ask what they want, places a bottle of Japanese whiskey on the table and to glasses and bows slightly and leaves. Jada looks at the bottle, looks at him. She didn't ask. Jada says, she knows. He says, how? Because this is my table. He says, it's always my table. She looks around the room. How often do you come here? This is my club. He says. She is quiet for a moment. You own this, she says. Double quotes, yes. The whole building, the whole block, he says. Not showing off, a correction. She pours her own whiskey, holds the glass, looks out at the room that is his room. The people who are performing normalcy for the man sitting next to her. The door through which no one enters who has not been decided about. Why did you bring me here? She asks. He looks at her, takes his time with the answer the way he takes his time with everything. Because you've been in my space, he says finally. The penthouse. My music. My rules. He pauses. I wanted you to see the full dimension of what that space is connected to. She looks at him. That's a very honest thing to say. I told you. He says. I say the terms out loud. She thinks about that, turns the whiskey glass in her hand. So this is a term, she says. Knowing. It's a courtesy, he says. What you do with the knowing is yours. She looks out at the room. A man at a table near the stage glances toward them. The briefest glance, involuntary. The way you glance at a fire from across a room. Not for warmth, but to confirm it's still there. He catches her eye, looks away immediately. They're afraid of you, she says. Some of them, he says. Most of them, she says. He doesn't correct her this time. She should have taken the courtesy seriously. He showed her what he was. He did it on purpose. He gave her the information with both hands, clearly labeled. This is what I am. This is the dimension of what you are agreeing to continue with. She should have said, thank you for the information. I think I'll be going. She stayed. She stayed because she is the kind of woman who moves toward the thing that frightens her, and always has been. And because the whiskey was very good, and because the music started, and it was extraordinary, a live pianist playing something that sat between jazz and something older, and the room shifted around the music the way rooms only shift when the music is real. And because he was sitting 2 inches from her, and she was in the dress he chose, and the room was his room, and all of that together made her feel something she did not have a clean name for yet. Dangerous. She felt dangerous, not threatened. Dangerous, like she was inside something powerful, and the power was partly hers by proximity, and she knew it was borrowed and not hers, and she took it anyway. She will think about that feeling later, about how quickly borrowed power becomes a reason to stay in rooms you should leave. She goes to the bathroom at midnight. The hallway is long and dark and smells of the same expensive nothing as the rest of the club. She passes a door, service entrance, slightly ajar, voices on the other side. She does not mean to listen. She is walking past. She hears a name, not her name. Tai-dasho. She stops. The voices are in Korean. She speaks no Korean. She gets tones. She gets urgency. She gets the particular cadence of men talking about something they do not want overheard. She hears the name again. Tayo, said by the second voice, confirming rather than asking. She does not know who Tayo is. She knows it is a child's name. The weight of it, the way it sits in a sentence, the shape a name makes when the people saying it do not want to be caught saying it. She walks to the bathroom, looks at herself in the mirror above the sink. The dress, his choice. Her body in his choice. The room she is in, his room. The music chosen before she arrived. She thinks, I don't know what I'm in the middle of. This is the first fully honest thought she has had since the night she came down off the ladder. She runs cold water over her wrists, looks at herself. She is a woman who came to Seoul to build something real. She built it. She runs it with her own hands. She does not need anyone to buy her dresses or arrange her evenings or choose her music. She does not need any of this. She looks at herself for a long time. Then she goes back to his table, sits down. He looks at her, that reading look, and pours her more whiskey and does not ask what took her long. The music is still extraordinary. She sits in his dress in his room, and the night keeps going. But something has moved. Something in the precise geometry of her feelings has shifted by 1 degree, the way a compass shifts when you get close to something magnetic. She just knows north has moved. Across the city, a woman with dark brown skin and long purple hair is standing in the departures terminal of Incheon Airport. Olia is not flying anywhere. She is in the arrivals hall, standing at the edge of the barrier, watching the board. Her expressive eyes move across the flight numbers with the focused speed of someone who has been doing a specific kind of math for 3 days straight. The spiral tattoo on her right shoulder is the only soft thing about her right now. Everything else is wire and calculation. She has been here for an hour. She watched a specific flight land. She counted passengers through the arrivals door. No Tayo. She pulls out her phone, calls the contact. Wrong flight, she says. No, the contact says. Right flight, different carrier. They changed it. A pause. 3 hours ago. Olia looks at the board. When does the new one land? It doesn't, the contact says. It already did. 40 minutes ago. Different terminal. Silence. He's gone, the contact says. Not unkindly, just the fact. Olia stands in the arrivals hall with the phone at her ear and the announcement board cycling through flights from cities she is not tracking. She stands very still in the middle of all of it. How far? She says. He's already through processing. The contact says. He's in a transit facility. If the paperwork clears by morning, I understand, Olia says. She hangs up. She stands for 60 seconds. She learned to do this. Let the bad information be real for exactly 60 seconds before she starts moving. Not to rush through it. Not to let it flatten her. 60 seconds of full weight. Then she starts running. She walks fast and even toward the exit. Already 3 moves ahead. Already mapping what exists and what doesn't. What doors are open and what doors she will have to break. There is one door she has not tried yet. Not because she forgot it. Because she knows what opening it costs. She knows what it means to walk into midnight law in the middle of whatever he has arranged for himself this evening and put the truth on the table in front of everyone. She knows what it means to show Jada. She has been protecting that woman without that woman knowing. Not out of sympathy. She does not know Jada. Has no reason for sympathy. Out of recognition. A woman from another country who walked into a store she built with her hands and got shown a version of a man that was designed to be everything she wanted. Olia knows that version. She was the first woman it was tested on. She gets in a cab outside the terminal. She gives the driver the address of Midnight Law. She looks out the window as Seoul passes, and she thinks about a 7-year-old boy counting fluorescent tubes on a ceiling. And she decides that the cost of this door, whatever it is, she will pay it. She is already paying it. Olia looked at the screen. The flight. The departure time. 2 hours. She dialed once, twice, 3 times. Jada did not answer. The music in the club was too loud. Sometimes between a person and a catastrophe, there is simply bad acoustics. Are you still here? Because if you are, you already know you cannot stop now. Subscribe to Seoul Midnight Lore. Drop a comment. Did Jada make her choice the moment she put the dress on or the moment she went back to the table? Thursday. Chapter 5 is where the walls of Vinyl and Seoul show everything that was hidden from the beginning. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Chapter 5. Aliyah finds the store at 11 in the morning. She has not slept. This is not unusual for her anymore. Sleep became optional sometime in the last 4 days, replaced by a different kind of rest. The rest of a person whose body has decided that the current situation is more important than recovery. She runs on coffee and the specific clarity that comes when you have passed through exhaustion and arrive somewhere on the other side of it, where everything is very simple and very sharp. She is 28 years old and she looks at today in the way she sometimes doesn't. Not older, but stripped of whatever softness usually sits on top of the precision. Dark brown skin without makeup, warm and deep even in the grey Seoul morning light. Long purple hair pulled back from her shoulders in a way that keeps it out of her face, without styling it. Functional, not aesthetic. The hair of someone who has more important things to think about. The spiral tattoo on her right shoulder is visible above the neckline of what she is wearing, which is not the red dress. That is folded carefully in her bag for later. For the moment she has already decided is coming, but a simple dark top that says nothing about her except that she got dressed this morning without caring what they getting dressed communicated. Her expressive eyes, which are her most readable feature on the days she allows them to be, are not readable today. Today they are just fast, moving and calculating and not stopping on anything long enough to feel it. She has time for feeling later. Right now she has a store to get into. Vinyl and Seoul is closed. The sign on the door says it opens at 10. It is 11. The lights inside are off. She knocks anyway. No answer. She steps back and looks at the building. Second floor windows, apartment above the store, curtains drawn. She thinks about calling. She has Jada's number from a source she will not think about right now, because thinking about the sources she has used in the last 4 days requires a separate accounting that she is not ready to do. She does not call. She tries the door. It opens. Not forced, not broken, simply unlocked. The kind of unlocked that means someone left in a hurry or someone did not think it mattered. She stands in the doorway for a moment. The store is dim. The front blinds half drawn. The familiar smell of vinyl and paper, and that particular warmth coming off the records. She has been in record stores her whole life. There is something in this one that feels like it belongs to the person who runs it in the specific way that only happens when someone has been somewhere long enough to leave an imprint. She steps inside. She moves through the front room. Crates of records, a counter with a register, and a hot plate and a bottle of whiskey. Half down, kept for herself, not for customers. A stool behind the counter worn smooth. The small details of a working life. She looks at them and feels the thing she does not want to feel, which is recognition. She was a woman who built something with her hands once. A different kind of thing, but the same principle. A space that was hers, that had her imprint on every surface, that she ran on her own terms in her own way. Before she understood that certain men, when they enter a space like that, do not see a business. They see a territory. She walks to the back of the store. There is a door she thought was a storage room. She tried it on a previous visit. Locked. Today it is not locked. She opens it. Inside, not storage. Inside, a room. She stands in the doorway and looks at it for a long time without moving. The room is small, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. No windows, a single bulb on a cord in the center of the ceiling, casting the kind of light that makes everything look slightly too real. Shelves on 3 walls, floor to ceiling. Not records, not boxes, files, folders, notebooks, and between the shelves, covering every inch of wall space that is not shelf, photographs. She looks at the photographs. She looks at them for a long time. They are of her, not all of them, but most of them. Enough of them that the room is unmistakably about her, about Olya Park, her life, her movements, her face in various cities in various years. Chicago, 2018. Outside a coffee shop she used to go to on Tuesdays, wearing the grey coat she bought that winter and still has somewhere in a box. London, 2019. At a music industry event she attended for exactly 40 minutes before leaving because the room felt wrong. Seoul, multiple times, multiple years. The progression of a woman moving through her life in a city she thought was hers. Her dark brown skin in every photograph. Her purple hair in different lengths across the years. Shorter in London, longer in Seoul. The length that is now just below her shoulders in the most recent ones. Taken weeks ago on a street she walks every Tuesday. Her expressive eyes caught in moments when they were not calculating anything. When they were simply open. And that is the part that sits in her chest, like something swallowed wrong. Not that he was watching. That he was watching specifically for the moments when her guard was down. The photographs are not all surveillance distance. Some of them are that, but others are closer, clearer. The quality of someone who had access. She moves into the room. She looks at the dates on some of the folders. The oldest is from 8 years ago. She does 8 years of arithmetic quickly, and the number it produces sits in her chest alongside the other thing. 8 years. Tayo is 7. She opens a folder. Inside, documents.articles. Printed pages from sources she recognizes and sources she does not. Annotated in handwriting she knows. That precise, unhurried script. Margin notes, circles. Arrows connecting things across pages, like a map of a conclusion he reached before anyone else knew the question had been asked. She opens another folder. Financial records. Money moving in directions she was told it was not moving. Money moving through structures she was told did not exist. She opens a third. This one, Jada Monroe. Chicago address. Seoul address. Business registration for vinyl and Seoul. Financial records. Personal. Business. Both in modest shape. The records of a woman building something real without a safety net. A photograph of the store from the outside. Date stamped 18 months ago. 18 months before the night Jae-won walked through the door in the rain. She looks at this folder for a long time. Then she looks back at the walls. She looks at her own face. Dark brown skin. Purple hair. Eyes that were open and did not know they were being seen. In 8 years of photographs, and she thinks about standing in a penthouse, being told the terms are this and this and this. She thinks about no questions outside this room. She thinks about a man who gives you terms because he says he believes in honesty, and she thinks about what it means that the room she is standing in right now, the room full of years of preparation, was also outside the terms. Always outside the terms. She moves to the shelf on the far wall. Records here, unlike the others. Not stored flat, but facing outward, intentional. A small collection, maybe 20 records, chosen. She looks at the labels, all of them rare. All of them the kind of pressing that takes years to locate. She knows, because she knows this world, that this collection represents an amount of money and time and specific knowledge that is not casual. One of them she recognizes. Marvin Gaye. 1973. Original Tamla label. The dark center ring. She takes it off the shelf, turns it over, looks at the vinyl. No hairline crack on side B. She looks at it for a moment. Then she understands. This is the real pressing. The one in the store. The one Jada found on the ladder. The one that brought her down into the conversation. That one was placed, left where she would find it, with a crack in it that would be noticed by someone who knew what to look for, by someone who knew her. She stands in the room with the record in her hands, and she lets the full geometry of it assemble itself. He did not walk into vinyl and soul because he was driving past in the rain. He did not reach for the same record by coincidence. He did not give Jada his name and wait for hers as if he did not already know it. None of it. Not one moment of it. Jada Monroe did not meet Jaewon. Jada Monroe was introduced to a version of Jaewon that was built specifically for her. Built from 18 months of research. Built from knowing what she looked for in a person. What she responded to. What she could not resist. The music she loved. The way she moved toward puzzles. The specific quality of attention she had been missing since her mother died. The kind her mother had, and no one since had given her in quite that way. He studied her the way you study a room before you arrange it. And then he arranged it. Olia sets the record down on the shelf. Carefully, with the particular care you use when you are very angry, and you do not want the anger to break something before you have decided what to break. She turns to the wall again. She looks at her own face. 8 years, dark brown skin in winter coats, and summer dresses, and the red open dress she bought the year things ended. The year she finally understood that some exits cost you something on the way out, and you pay it anyway, because staying costs more. She takes his favorite record from the shelf. She holds it in both hands, feels the weight of it. She breaks it, clean, across her knee. 2 pieces. The snap of it in the small room is very loud and very satisfying, and she does not feel guilty about the satisfaction. She sets both pieces on the shelf where the whole record was. She stands in the middle of the room and breathes. Then she takes out her phone and she starts photographing. Methodically, wall by wall, folder by folder. She does not look at everything. There is too much and she does not have the time. But she takes enough. She takes more than enough. She takes the kind of record that you take when you are building a case, rather than looking for an explanation. Because she stopped looking for explanations in this room approximately 3 minutes ago. She knows the explanation. She lived the explanation. She is standing in the physical record of the explanation. She is on the last wall when she hears the door. Not the front door of the store. The door of this room. She did not hear footsteps. She did not hear the front door open. She is standing with her phone raised and she turns, and he is in the doorway. He is looking at the shelf where the record was, at the 2 pieces. He does not look at her photographs on the walls. He does not look at the folders or the files or the years of documentation covering every surface. He looks at the 2 pieces of vinyl on the shelf, and something happens in his face that she has seen before and does not have a clean name for. Not anger, older than anger. The expression of a man who is looking at something irreplaceable and processing its absence in real time. He takes off one glove. He does it slowly, deliberately, tucks it into his jacket pocket. Then the other glove. Same pace, same precision, tucked away. He looks up at her. She does not move. She has known Jaewon long enough to understand that this moment, right now, the 10 seconds after he walked through the door, is the moment that determines what happens next. Whether she backs down is the question. Whether she shows the specific quality of fear that invites a particular response. She does not back down. She holds his gaze and she thinks about Tayo counting ceiling tiles. And she keeps her phone in her hand and her feet exactly where they are. 28 years old, dark brown skin, long purple hair. The spiral tattoo visible on her right shoulder in the flat light of the single bulb. Expressive eyes that are not expressing anything. right now accept the specific quality of a woman who has decided. You should have locked the door, she says. He looks at her. His expression does not change, but something behind it does. Something shifts, recalibrates, lands on a decision she cannot read from the outside. He takes out his own phone. She watches him. He dials a number, raises the phone to his ear, does not take his eyes off her. .1 ring. .2. The other end picks up. He says one word, in Korean. She knows enough Korean, after the years she's spent in this world, to know what the word means. Stop. He hangs up. She looks at him. The processing, she says, or the flight? Both, he says. She does not let herself feel it yet. She files it behind the hard wall she has been building for days, and she looks at him in the doorway of the room he built, and she thinks about what she is going to say next. He has been in that room for 4 days, she says. I know. He says, you always knew. Yes, and you let it run. He says nothing. He looks at her with that expression, patient, calculating, the expression of a man who knows the weight of what he is being accused of, and is not going to dispute the charge, because disputing it would require a lie he is not willing to tell. Why? She says. He is quiet for a long moment. Because my mother does not make a move without a counter in mind, he says. And I needed to know what counter she was building before I stopped the move. Olia looks at him. You used your son, she says. I used the situation, he says. He is 7 years old. I know how old he is. He was counting the lights on the ceiling, she says. Her voice does not break. She will not let it break in front of him. He asked the officer when his mother was coming. 4 times. The officer closed the door. She pauses. 4 times, he asked. Something moves across Jae-won's face. Fast, gone before she can catalog it. But it was there. The fastest expressions are the truest ones. The performed ones are held longer. The real ones disappear before he can manage them. She saw it. Is it stopped? She says. Completely. Not paused. Stopped. Yes, he says. I want documentation. You'll have it within the hour. She looks at him for a long time. In the room full of her own face on the walls. In the room he built. In the room that is the most complete picture she has ever seen of the way this man operates. Patient, thorough, years of accumulation, everything pointing toward a conclusion he decided on before anyone else knew the game had started. The girl, she says, Jada. He says nothing. She doesn't know any of this. No, he says, she is going to find out tonight. He looks at her. Is that a threat? He says, not aggressive, genuinely asking. It's a fact, she says. I am going to tell her. Not to hurt you. Not as a move. Because she deserves to know what room she has been standing in. She pauses. The same way I deserved to know, and didn't. He looks at her for a long time. I know, he says finally. It is not an apology. She does not expect an apology, but the words contain something. An acknowledgement of a specific debt. The particular weight of a man who knows exactly what he cost someone and is not trying to renegotiate the amount. She walks to the door. He steps aside. She passes him close enough to feel the warmth of him in the small room, and she does not look at him and she does not slow down. At the doorway she stops. She does not turn around. The record, she says. The Marvin Gaye. The real one. On the shelf. He says nothing. She found a cracked one. Olia says. You put it there for her to find. She doesn't have the real one. She pauses. Give her the real one. Whatever else you do or don't do tonight, give her the one without the crack. She walks through the store. She does not look back. Behind her, in the small room, a man stands alone in the middle of 8 years of his own architecture and looks at 2 pieces of a broken record on a shelf, and for the first time, in as long as he can measure, the room he is standing in does not feel like a room he built. It feels like a room that built him. He stood in the doorway, looked at the record, to pieces on the floor. Not at her, at the record. Slowly he took off one glove, then the other, folded them carefully, put them in his pocket. Olia did not move from where she stood. She already knew. Quiet men are more dangerous than loud ones. Leave a comment right now. One word. That's all. Just one word for what Olia did in that room. Subscribe to Seoul Midnight Law. Thursday, Chapter 6 is the table. 3 people, 1 truth, and a choice that does not have a right answer. Only the one you can live with. Chapter 6. The dress Jaewon chose is working. Jada knows this the way you know when something fits correctly. Not from looking in a mirror, but from the way your own body moves inside it. The fabric follows her, follows the curve of her wide hips when she shifts, follows the weight of her full chest when she breathes, follows the particular roll of her walk that she has never tried to minimize and never will. She is a woman who takes up room on purpose, always has been. In Chicago, she took up room in spaces that sometimes didn't want her to. Here, in this booth, in this club, in this dress, the room was built around her taking it up. She knows this is his doing. She is past pretending she doesn't know that. She is on her 6th night. 3 left. The arithmetic is back, but it has changed direction. She is no longer counting toward an ending. She is counting the remaining weight of something. The way you count the last days of a thing you have decided to feel fully before it closes. The music is live again tonight. A different pianist than last time, younger, more technical, less feeling. She noticed this when they arrived and filed it away. She has learned that in this room comments about the music are not small talk. They are information. He listens to what she says about music the way a doctor listens to symptoms. She is watching the pianist when she feels it. The room changes, not the way it changed when she and Jaewon walked in. That was a spreading stillness, a crowd adjusting to a known quantity. This is different. This is the room noticing something new, something that was not expected. She turns toward the door. The woman who walks in is wearing red, not the careful managed red of women who wear color as accessory. This red is deliberate in the way a statement is deliberate, open cut, the kind of dress that does not apologize for the body inside it. Dark brown skin, warm and deep, the kind of skin that makes red look like it was invented for that specific purpose. Long purple hair falling just below her shoulders, vivid and completely natural on the person wearing it, as if any other color would have been the strange choice. Down her right shoulder, visible where the red dress opens, a tattoo, spiral, black ink, clean lines, the size and placement of something chosen rather than collected. Her eyes are expressive in the way of someone who feels everything at full volume. And tonight they are not soft. Tonight they are moving fast across the room, calculating, landing on the VIP section and staying there. She is 28 years old and she moves through Midnight Law the way Jada moves through vinyl. And Seoul, like she knows where she is and has measured the distance to every exit and is choosing, deliberately, not to use any of them. Every head that tracked Jada when she walked in earlier tonight tracks this woman now. Jada looks at her and thinks, I don't know who she is. And then 1 second later, he does. She turns to Jaewon. His face is still, completely still, but still the way water is still before it moves. Not the stillness of nothing happening, the stillness of everything happening underneath. His hands on the table are flat and easy to easy. The deliberate ease of a man who has trained himself to respond to surprises with no visible response at all. He knew she might come. He did not know she would come tonight. The woman in red walks directly to their table. She does not look at anyone else. Her expressive eyes, moving faster than her face, go to Jaewon first. 1 second. Assessment complete. Then they come to Jada. She sits down. She looks at Jada with full attention. Not the way women sometimes look at each other in situations like this. With the inventory of competition, the scan that measures Brett with something else. Something that takes Jada a moment to name. Recognition. He has excellent taste in vinyl, she says. Her voice is lower than Jada expected. Steady. The voice of someone who has rehearsed nothing because she does not need to. A pause. Long enough to be deliberate. And in women, Jada looks at her. At the red dress, the purple hair falling just below her shoulders, the spiral tattoo on her right shoulder, the folder in her hands, the dark brown skin that carries no expression right now except this specific quality of a woman who has made a decision and is following it through. Who are you? Jada says. Olia, she says. We have a son together. She does not look at Jaehwon when she says it. She keeps her eyes on Jada. His name is Tayo. He is 7 years old, and 4 days ago, he was placed in an immigration detention facility by a process that his father allowed to run while he was here with you. The table is very quiet. The music keeps playing. The pianist on stage does not know that the sound has been completely removed from this table, that the 3 people sitting here are inside a silence that the music cannot reach. Jada looks at Jaehwon. He does not look away from her. He meets her eyes and he holds them, and he does not offer anything. Not defense, not explanation, not the management of her reaction. He simply receives her looking at him the way he receives everything, with that absolute stillness. She looks back at Olia. Is he safe? She says. Olia looks at her. Something shifts in her expression, a micro-adjustment, barely visible. The kind of shift that happens when a person recalibrates their understanding of who they are talking to. He is now, she says. The process was halted this afternoon. By him, yes, today, Jada says. Not 4 days ago. No, Olia says. Not 4 days ago. Jada picks up her glass, puts it down without drinking. She is doing something she does when she needs to keep her hands occupied while her mind works. A small private habit. The glass up and down, that she has never explained to anyone. The store, she says. The night we met. Yes, Olia says. He knew who I was. He has known who you are for 18 months. The number lands in the room. Jada does not look at Jaehwon. She keeps her eyes on Olia, and she processes 18 months and everything it contains. The record with the crack she found herself, the precise quality of his attention, the way the penthouse was lit for her skin specifically, the dress hanging on her door that was exactly her, the whiskey already poured, the music chosen, all of it. She processes all of it in about 10 seconds, which is not enough time, but is the time she has. The record, she says. The Marvin Gaye. The crack on side B. He put it there, Olia says. He put it there for me to find. Yes. So I would come down off the ladder. Yes. Jada is very quiet for a moment. There is a room, she says, at my store, behind the back door. Olia looks at her steadily. I was in it this morning. I felt it. Jada says. I never opened it. I felt that something was back there, and I chose not to open it. She pauses. I think I knew that opening it would change things, and I was not ready for things to change. She looks at her glass. That was a decision, choosing not to know. Olia looks at her for a long moment. The purple hair falls slightly forward over her right shoulder, partially covering the spiral tattoo. She does not push it back. Then she opens the folder. She does not push it across the table. She opens it and turns it, and sets it where Jada can see it if she chooses to look down, which gives Jada the choice. Jada looks down. Her own face. Multiple years. Multiple cities. A timeline of herself that someone built without her knowledge, assembled from a distance, with the particular patience of a man who has decided on a conclusion and is working backward from it through all available information. She looks at it for a long time. Then she closes the folder. She looks at Oliar. How long were you with him? 3 years, Oliar says. I left when Tayo was 2. Did you know what he was? What this was? Oliar is quiet for a moment. The club keeps going around them. The music, the movement, the room that belongs to the man sitting between them not saying a word. I knew what he was, Oliar says finally. I did not know the full dimension of how he operated until later, until I started finding things. She pauses. You always find things. It just takes a different amount of time for different people. Jada nods slowly. She turns to Jae-won. He looks at her. Still no management in it. No performance of regret. He's looking at her the way he always looks at her. Fully. Directly, with that absolute quality of attention that she now understands is not particular to her. It is simply how he looks at problems he is invested in. The 9 nights, she says. Yes, he says. You knew what you were doing. Yes, every part of it. Yes. She looks at him for a long time. The pianist finishes something and moves into something new, and the sound changes shape. And she sits in the change and thinks about what to say to a man who has just confirmed in one syllable 3 times in a row that nothing she experienced was accidental. Not the record, not the ladder, not the contract, not the 3 days of silence, or the call at 2:17, or the dress on her door, or the strawberry held just past her lips and pulled back. All of it architecture, all of it built. She thinks about the night she told him about her mother, about Chicago, the coffee shop corners with her mother's absence printed in every one. She thought he was receiving it. He was receiving it, but he also already knew, because he had been outside a coffee shop in Chicago in 2018 watching her in the grey coat she bought that winter. She thinks about feeling seen. She thinks about how feeling seen and being studied are, from the inside, completely indistinguishable. Do you have anything to say? She says. He is quiet for a moment. Then he says, what do you want me to say? The truth, she says. Not a term, not a construction. The truth. He looks at her. Something in his face moves. That fast, real expression, gone before he can manage it. She catches it the same way she caught it on the ladder the first night. That one unguarded second. I saw you 18 months ago, he says. Outside your store, before it opened. You were painting the sign. It was early. You did not know anyone was watching. You made a mistake with one of the letters and you stopped. And you looked at it and you laughed. He pauses. Not at yourself. With yourself? Like the mistake was something you found genuinely funny. Like you were someone who could mess up something that mattered and find it funny. Silence. I had not seen anyone do that in a long time, he says. Jada looks at him. So you built a room full of my photographs, she says. Yes, he says. That is not a normal response to watching someone laugh. No, he says. It is not. She looks at him. He looks at her. And in the space between them is everything. The 9 nights, and the music, and the penthouse, and the dress, and the cracked record placed for her to find, and the room she chose not to open, and the man sitting in front of her, who is at the same time the most interesting person she has encountered in Seoul, and the clearest danger she has walked into since she came to this city. Both of those things are completely true. That is the part she will struggle with the longest. Oliar takes something from her bag. She sets it on the table. A signet ring, heavy, dark metal, engraved with a design Jada does not recognize, but Jae-won clearly does, because his eyes go to it immediately, and something in him goes very still in a new way. Not the trained stillness, the real kind, the kind that happens before a person decides whether to move towards something or away from it. On the surface of the ring, a dark stain, dried, old. Not fresh. This is not a threat being made in this moment. This is a history being presented. The ring sits on the table between all three of them like a fourth person who has been in the room the whole time and is only now making itself visible. Your mother sent this, Olia says, through the attorney. After the process was halted this afternoon. She pauses. She wants you to know that stopping the process has consequences, that there are counters already in motion, that the halt was a move, not a resolution. Jae-won looks at the ring, does not touch it. She wants you to choose, Olia says. Her expressive eyes are on him now, not on Jada. Dark brown skin, absolutely still. Long purple hair over her right shoulder. The spiral tat catching the low light of the club. She does not perform this moment. She simply delivers it. Her words, not mine. Who remains beside you when the real war begins? The music in the club reaches some kind of peak. The pianist finding something at the top of a run, holding it, and then it comes down. And the room breathes. And the silence at this table is the clearest silence in the building. Jae-won looks at the ring. Then he looks at Olia. Then he looks at Jada. Jada is already standing. She picks up her coat from the seat beside her. She does it without drama. No push of the chair. No raised voice. No tears. She stands the way she always stands, fully occupying her own body. Warm dark skin and wide hips, and the particular bearing of a curvy and bold woman from Chicago who came to Seoul to build something real and has been building it the whole time. She was also inside this. She looks at Jae-won. The real pressing, she says. The Marvin Gaye, without the crack. She holds his gaze. I want the real one. He looks at her, one long look, then he nods once. She looks at Olia. Thank you, she says, for coming. Olia looks at her with those fast expressive eyes that are, for the first time tonight, moving slowly. You deserved to know what room you were standing in. Yes, Jada says. I did. She puts on her coat. She walks through the room, through the club. That is his club. On the block, that is his block. Past the people who track her movement the way they track everything in here. Through the door that the man outside opens, because she is leaving rather than arriving, and the mechanism works in both directions when you choose to use it. Outside, Seoul.night. The particular cold of the city at this hour, sharp and honest, and not ranged by anyone. She stands on the sidewalk. She breathes. She does not feel what she expected to feel. She expected something that broke cleanly. Betrayal, anger, the particular grief of a thing that turned out not to be what it looked like. She feels all of those things. But underneath them, or alongside them, something else that she does not have a perfect word for yet. She felt seen. She knows now that what she felt was being studied. She knows those are different things. And she also knows, and this is the part that will take the longest to work through, that being studied that carefully, that completely, that patiently, for 18 months, by someone who looked at her laughing at her own mistake at 6 a.m. and decided that was worth years of his life. That is not nothing. It is not love. It is not clean. It does not excuse the room or the crack in the record or the 4 days a 7-year-old boy spent counting ceiling tiles. But it is not nothing. She walks. Seoul keeps going around her, indifferent and loud and not knowing her name yet, which was what she came here for, which is still what she has. She walks back toward Mapo-gu, back toward the narrow street with the dry cleaner and the handmade shoes, back toward vinyl and soul, which she bought on the last of her savings and painted the sign herself at 6 a.m. and made a mistake with one of the letters and laughed with herself. Because the mistake was genuinely funny, she is almost at the door when she sees it. On the step, A record in a paper sleeve. No name. She picks it up, slides it from the sleeve. Marvin Gaye, 1973, original Tamla label. The dark center ring. She turns it over, holds it up to the streetlight. Side B, third track. No crack. She stands on the step of her store in the Seoul night with the real record in her hands. And she thinks about a man who placed a broken one for her to find and then, when it was over, sent her the real one. She does not know what to do with that. She does not have to know tonight. She unlocks the door, goes inside. The store smells like dust and paper, and the warmth of vinyl touched by 1,000 different hands. She does not turn on the overhead light. She turns on the lamp behind the counter. Low, warm, the color of the inside of a closed eye. She puts the record on the turntable. The needle drops. Marvin Gaye's voice fills the room, and she stands in the middle of her store, the one she built with her hands, and she listens, not waiting for anything, not expecting anyone, just listening. And the city outside keeps going, and the music is real. She did not shout. She simply placed the ring on the table. The blood was already dry, foreign, old, someone else's. And she said quietly, "Tayo is already in the air." Jada looked at Jae-hwan. He looked at the ring. The music played, and for the first time all evening, he did not know what to say. Some women win precisely in the silence, but 3 floors above a street in Gangnam, in a house where the floors are heated and the walls hold 50 years of authority, a woman sits at a desk and reads a message on a phone. Process halted. She reads it once, sets the phone down. She is 61 years old and looks 50. Precise silver hair, ivory silk jacket, short neat nails on working hands that have signed documents that changed lives without ever appearing in any public record. She has a stillness that is different from her son's stillness. His is trained, hers is original. He learned control from watching her. She has never had to learn it. It was simply always there. The way certain things are always there in people who are formed by a world that did not forgive mistakes. She is not angry. She expected this. She did not expect it to take this long. Which means her son is more invested than she calculated. Which means the woman from Chicago is more significant than she calculated. Which means the counter she has already prepared needs to be moved from contingency to active. She opens a drawer. Inside, a photograph taken 3 weeks ago, outside vinyl and Seoul, through the east window. To people inside, one at the counter, one at the turntable. She looks at the photograph for a moment. Then she picks up the phone and makes a call. Begin the second approach, she says. She hangs up. She closes the drawer. She looks at the heated floor, the silk walls, the 50 years of authority that surround her. And she thinks about her son standing in a record store, making a choice that he believed was his. She almost smiles. He has always believed his choices were his. That is the most useful thing about him. And somewhere in Mapo-gu, in a small store that smells like dust and paper and the warmth of 1,000 different hands, a woman stands alone in the dark and listens to music that was always, even from the beginning, the real thing. She does not know that the woman in Gangnam has just made a call. She does not know that the second approach has already begun. She only knows the music. And right now, that is enough. If you made it to the end of this story, you already know what you are. You are the person who stays in the room until the music finishes. Subscribe to Seoul Midnight Lore. Leave one comment, just one, about what you think Sunhee's second approach is. Because Season 2 of Seoul Contracts is already running. And the most dangerous person in this universe was never in a penthouse or a record store. She was in a house with heated floors, and she has been 3 moves ahead since before anyone knew the game had started. New season, new rules. New war. Thursday. Come find us in the dark.